Hello students, welcome back. Today we are going to study new strands in the fabric, Islamic traditions. Here we will understand how Islamic traditions became part of Indian society and how they blended with local cultures. Long-standing contact with the outside world. Meaning, first we must understand that the Indian subcontinent was never isolated. For many centuries, India had contact with land across seas and mountains. Arab merchants visited port on the western coast of India in the first millennium. Central Asian people also settled in northwestern regions during the same period. These regions were frequently connected with the outside world. So India was always part of global interactions. Now, advent of Islam. Now, let's see the advent of Islam. When I say advent, that means arrival or beginning. From the 7th century CE, Islam began to spread. Regions connected with India became part of the Islamic world, meaning regions where Islam had political and cultural influence. These interactions introduced new religious and cultural traditions into the subcontinent. Now, moving on to 5.1 Fate of Rulers and Subjects. Focus on religion of ruling elite. Historians often study these developments by focusing on the religion of ruling elite, meaning kings, nobles, and powerful rulers. In 711 CE, Arab general Muhammad Qasim conquered Sindh. Sindh became part of Caliph domain. What is Caliph? Who were they? They were the political and religious leaders of the Islamic world. And you all must be knowing by now what do you mean by domain, that is a territory under control. Establishment of Muslim rule. In the 13th century, Turks and Afghans established the Delhi Sultanate. Later, regional sultanates were formed in the Deccan and other areas. Deccan is a region, it's a plateau region of southern part of India. Islam became the official religion of rulers in many regions. This continued under the Mughal Empire in the 16th century and several 18th century regional states. Now, moving on to role of ulama and Sharia. In theory, Muslim rulers were guided by ulama. Who were they? They were the Islamic scholars. The ulama ensured rule according to Sharia. Sharia, it's an Islamic law based on the Quran and traditions. However, the Indian situation was complex because many subjects did not subscribe, meaning follow or accept to Islam. Concept of Jimmi. To manage religious diversity, the category of Jimmi, meaning protected non-Muslim protected non-Muslims under Muslim rule was developed. Jimmi means protected people. It comes from the Arabic word jimma, meaning protection. Originally, it applied to Jews and Christians who followed revealed scriptures, meaning holy texts believed to be divinely revealed. Jimmis paid a tax called jizya, that is, tax paid by non-Muslims under Muslim rule in return for protection. In India, this status was extended to Hindus as well. Inclusive idea of kingship. Over time, rulers like the Mughals saw themselves as emperors of all people, not only Muslims. This inclusive idea of kingship became very clear under Mughal rule. Flexible policies towards subjects. In practice, many rulers followed flexible and tolerant policies. Several rulers gave land endowments, meaning grant of land for religious purposes, tax exemptions, that is, freedom from paying taxes. These benefits were given to Hindu, Jaina, Zoroastrian, Christian, and Jewish institutions. Rulers also showed respect and devotion to non-Muslim religious leaders. Such grants were made even by Mughal rulers like Akbar and Aurangzeb. Therefore, we are completing 5.1. A quick revision on this topic. India had long-standing link with the Islamic world. Muslim rule was established gradually from 711 CE onwards. Though guided by Islamic law in theory, rulers adopted to India's religious diversity. Adapted to India's religious diversity. Concepts like Jimmy and Jizya helped manage non-Muslim populations. Many rulers followed tolerant and inclusive policies. Moving on to 5.2, the popular practice of Islam. Now let's see how Islam spread among common people. Spread of Islam beyond rulers. Islamic changes were not limited to rulers or elite. Islamic practices permeated. That means spreading or spread widely across the subcontinent. That is what we call it as permeated. People from different social strata, that is strata meaning social groups or classes, adopted Islam, including peasants, artisans, warriors, merchants. So, Islam spread widely in society. The five pillars of Islam. All converts accepted the five pillars, meaning basic principles of Islam. The first one is Shahada, that is belief in one God, who is Allah, and Muhammad as his messenger. The second is Namaz, or they call it as Salat, that is prayer 5 times a day. The third is Zakat, giving alms, meaning charity to the poor. The fourth one is Swam, or say Swam, SAWM, that is fasting during Ramzan. And the fifth one is Hajj, pilgrimage. We all know pilgrimage is religious journey. Where do they go? To Mecca. So these form the core of Islamic practice. Now, diversity in Islamic practices. Although core beliefs were common, practices varied. Differences arose because of sectarian. When I say sectarian, related to religious subgroups, affiliations like Sunni and Shia, local customs of converts from different social backgrounds and milieus, that is social environment. So religion adapted to local culture. For example, we have this Khojas and Ismailis. Okay, so the Khojas belonging to Ismailis, they are the branch of Shia Muslims, developed new ways of disseminating. When I say disseminating, it means spreading Islamic ideas. They explained ideas from the Quran using local literary forms. Now let's move on to Jinan, the devotional poetry. One such form was Jinan. The word Jinan comes from the Sanskrit word Jnana. Jnana means knowledge. These were devotional poems sung during daily prayer meetings. They were composed in regional languages like Punjabi, Multani, Sindhi, Kutchi, Hindi, Gujarati. They were sung in special ragas. When I say ragas, musical modes in Indian music. Islam on the Malabar coast. Arab Muslim traders settled along the Malabar coast. Where is this Malabar coast? Is western coastal region of Kerala. They adopted the local language Malayalam, local customs like matrilineal. When I say matrilineal, that is tracing family lineage through the mother. Matrilocal residence. What is matrilocal? That means husband living in wife's home. This shows adaptation to local tradition. Now moving on to architecture as a blend of faith and tradition. Mosques best show the blend of universal Islamic beliefs and local traditions. Now, if you see, mosque reflects universal and local features. That is, universal features includes orientation towards Mecca. When I say orientation, it is direction. So, it is facing towards Mecca. And the next one is Mirab. That means it's a prayer niche showing direction of Mecca. So, when I say niche, That means a small recessed space in a wall, usually arched, made to place a statue, lamp, or for a special purpose. In the case of Mirab, it's a niche in the wall of a mosque that shows the direction of Mecca, which Muslims face while offering prayers. So you can understand like that is Mirab. The next Mirab is it's again a niche, that is a small hollow space in the wall indicating the direction of Mecca. Now next one is minbar. What is minbar? Or you can call it as minbar. That is raised platform for delivering sermons. These are common in all mosques. Now, regional variation in mosque architecture. Despite common features, mosques showed variations, that is, differences. On these differences were seen in roof styles, building materials, and these architectural features dependent on local climate and tradition. So, Islam blended with regional culture even in architecture. Now, that is all about 5.2. A quick recap of 5.2 is Islam spread among common people, not just rulers. The five pillars form the foundation of Islamic practices. Sect and local cultures shaped everyday religious life. Regional languages, customs, and architecture blended with Islamic tradition. Now, moving on to 5.3, names for communities. Let's see, that is in this part of the lesson, we are going to understand something very interesting. Today, we easily use the word Hindu and Muslim as names of religious communities. But were these terms always used in the same way? Did people in medieval India identify themselves mainly by religion? Let's explore how identities were understood in the past. Now, a modern use of the terms Hindu and Muslim. Today we commonly use the word Hindu and Muslims as religious identities, but historians tell us that these labels were not widely used for a long time in history. These terms slowly gained currency. That means they gradually became common. So we must not take these identities for granted. They developed over time. This shows that religious identity was not always fixed or sharply defined. Now, evidence from historical sources. Now, what do historical sources tell us? When historians studied Sanskrit texts and inscriptions from the 8th to 14th centuries, they found something surprising. The word Musalman or Muslim were almost never used. People were not identified primarily by religion. Instead, identity was described in other ways. This tells us that medieval society did not divide people mainly on religious lines. So, identification based on region. If religion was not the main identity, then how were people identified? Mostly by region. For example, Tushka, they were from the Turkish rulers. Tajika, people from Tajikistan. Parashika, people from Persia. So identity was geographical. People were identified by where they come from, but not by their religion. Now, use of older terms of new migrants. Sometimes older labels were reused for new groups. For example, Turks and Afghans were sometimes called Shakas. They were also called Yavanas, a term earlier used by Greeks. So names were flexible, they were reused and adapted. This shows that identity terms were not rigid. Now, moving on to the term Mlicha. Another important term used in text was Mlicha. This was a broad term for foreign communities. It referred to people who did not follow caste rules. spoke languages not derived from Sanskrit. The term often had a derogatory meaning, that is, say that it sounds negative, but it did not clearly define Muslims as a separate religious community. It was more about cultural difference than religious identity. Meaning of the term Hindu. Now let us look at the word Hindu. This term was used in many ways. It was not always religious. Sometimes it referred to a geographical region, cultural practices, people living beyond the Indus River. So originally Hindu was more geographical than religious. Over time, it gradually developed into a religious identity. So that is the end of 5.3. Let us summarize. The term Hindu and Muslim became common much later. In medieval India, people were identified by region, language, or customs. Terms like Turushika, Tajika, Parashika, and Mlicha were widely used. Religious identity were fluid and not sharply defined. This helps us understand that identities change over time. We should always study history carefully without assuming that present day meaning existed in the past. With this, we complete 5.3 names for communities. Please revise these concepts carefully and practice writing the board-based 8-mark questions as given from 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3. In the next video, we will continue with the remaining units of this chapter. Until then, thank you.